You see what's sitting behind me? No, not that. That. Sitting right behind me is the 2023 LEGO Rivendell set, quite possibly one of the best LEGO sets ever created, but as you can see there's something very different with it and it is lit up. Using a lighting kit provided by Brixmax, I was able to light this entire scene, capturing the beautiful essence of Rivendell perfectly. And we're going to be using these lights to our advantage to recreate various scenes from the movies using LEGO photography and show you a few tips along the way, so let's get straight into it. Also, side note, I have to address the elephant in the room. Yes, that is Minas Tirith. I did a whole unboxing on my Instagram. I have to get this video done before I even start that, because if I start that, I'm not gonna stop it. So I need to make sure to get this video done, then I can jump on that. But in the meantime, let's go over this shoot. So the first daunting task was moving a 6,000 piece set from my room all the way to the garage, and that was a difficult task, I gotta tell you. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the channel, every time I go into the garage, I have a pretty basic setup. I have the Ulanzi bicolor light, sometimes use a few smaller pocket lights, a black backdrop, a smoke machine, which I'm going to be using later. None of this is sponsored, by the way. It's just the gear that I have in my possession that I use for most of my shoots. And Ulanzi products are quite cheap, but they're actually very reliable. I've been using their products for almost 3 years now and never let me down. So I had a Google Doc where I had all my reference photos that I really wanted to capture, and I wanted to treat this as a warm-up. So the first scene I wanted to capture was between Boromir and Aragorn, kind of looking at the Narsil and the foreshadowing of King Aragorn when he uses the sword in the final battle. Now, I started with the 28-70 and just found it was, way too wide for a scene like this, because although Rivendell is quite a big set, the back of it is actually quite thin. So I wanted to have a little bit of compression and also make the set feel a lot bigger than it actually is. So that's why I switched over to the 85mm. I've been loving this lens lately because it has a beautiful macro feature which allows you to get really close to your images, and that compression that the 85mm gives you is super nice as well. So I wanted to go for that blue tinge just like in the movie. Most of this was done through editing. I found out during this shoot that the best way to kind of replicate movies' tones is to go for kind of like a neutral white balance and then kind of edit off that. So for this shoot, I was trying to tick off different, angles and scenes that I thought were really important in this film. First being Boromir picking up the Narsil and kind of looking at it. Now, I didn't have the scene where he's dropping it at all. I think I should have, but I have in the next scene Aragorn picking it up in a low angle, which is one of my first tips when it comes to LEGO photography, is to experiment with different angles, because it could have been very easy to do like a eye level shot with some of these characters like I do in a lot of my photography, but I think it was really important to show that we are looking at the beginning of a hero, as this is the first film of the trilogy and we learn more about Aragorn and his path to becoming king, and he picks it up briefly to then put it back on the statue. So I wanted to highlight that through these, small little scenes. Next, I moved on to Bilbo and Frodo, and these images were a lot of fun to take because it was really nice to kind of shoot into that room that you don't really see when you have it displayed. And it was also fun to play around with that story of, Bilbo going for the ring like that. Kind of went for more yellows in this scene because it was quite, I don't know, the lights that come with the lighting kit are quite warm, so I wanted to play that. And again, experimenting with those angles is so important because this is probably one of my favorite shots from the entire shoot, is Bilbo looking extremely like Gollum for the ring. I've got it angled so that you can look straight through the ring and see Bilbo's eye. And of course, the Eye of Sauron being a huge part of these films, like having Bilbo's eye through the ring like that, I thought was really cool. And then next, I really wanted to highlight the lights that were inside Rivendell because I thought they were very beautiful, especially these little candles, and having Frodo kind of move around Rivendell and look at the map that has, Barad-dûr on it was really cool. Another tip I really advocate for is framing. So it's basically finding an angle where you can have something like around the lens almost. So like in this case, we're looking through the halls of Rivendell, and it just creates for a really nice, beautiful frame that naturally leads the viewer's eye straight to the subject, and also makes you feel more involved in the photo as well. Like you take these two images here, like the one with Frodo and Bilbo is really nice with Sting, but for the second image when he is looking through the halls and you have that framing, you feel like you're more in the scene, whereas this one you kind of feel like you're from the outsider's perspective sort of thing. Framing can really help in getting your audience to feel like they're in the actual scene. And then got a nice shot of Frodo reading Bilbo's book. I know it's not lore accurate at this point, he hasn't finished the book and it's not read, but I think it's just a nice shot. Now, probably one of the most important scenes to replicate was the bridge scene between Arwen and Aragorn. It is beautiful, and I wanted to make sure that I did justice to this image. So of course I wanted to use the Ulanzi smoke machine to create a nice haze in the background for this scene. Now, because when you're shooting in quite a small space like a garage, it can sometimes be really hard to create depth, and it can make the image look really flat. So the way I countered this was, because Rivendell splits up into 3 parts, I had the first part, which is obviously the bridge, and then the end piece, so this piece, I had off to the background to create depth. Because if I just had the black background, yes, I would have had smoke in the back and everything like that, but I just wanted to make it feel like there's a lot more to, you know, this scene rather than just like a black background. And again, using that smoke machine really helps to fill the negative space of the black background in these cases. And then as far as the edit goes, it's just changing the color temperature to those nice blues that you see in the film, you know, boosting the contrast and shadows and whatnot. The main thing I wanted to do was slightly brighten the lights up, because I gotta make sure that the lights are exposed correctly, so I have to shoot the scene quite dark. So just using the brush tool and the soft light blend mode, I was just, you know, dotting little lights over the original ones to make them feel a little bit brighter, and also add a little bit more haze to the background where the smoke machine has missed. Now for time-wise, I use generative AI to remove things from photos. I never ever use generative AI to add things. Won't see me doing that, just because I found the wire to be very distracting. And boom, just small tweaks here and there, and it makes for a very beautiful image. Now I came up with this idea while I was doing it. I thought it'd be really cool to have Gandalf smoking on the bridge. And it took a few tries to get the smoke to, you know, distribute where I wanted it, but it was essentially just, you know, trying different ways of moving the nozzle to make it look like Gandalf's really smoking here. Now, another really important thing is to have a foolproof story. Now, what I mean by that is Gandalf is here smoking on the bridge, and I took the hat off because usually when Gandalf is smoking, he has his hat off. Now, I didn't discourage the hat completely. I made sure to have it off to the side because it's such an iconic piece to Gandalf, and I wanted the story to be consistent, where it's like you can see that, you know, he's taken his hat off and he's put it there. It hasn't disappeared basically, he's just put it off to the side. And it's those small little details that I think are really important for, you know, helping a story like this. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the character and think how it would play out if it was a real thing, just so that, you know, when it comes time to the photograph, it makes sense. And I've done the same thing with Gimli. So I've had Gimli coming out of the armory with a whole bunch of gold, because we see in The Hobbit, you know, the dwarves stealing things from them, and also to highlight some more of the cool lighting here. I made sure to photograph Elrond looking at Gimli holding a gold cup with the other little gold ingot or whatever off to the side, just showing that he got drunk obviously, and, you know, he's passed out over here and Elrond has found him and doesn't approve at all. Got some nice story shots through here, and then it was time to move on to probably one of the most iconic scenes, which was, you know, the gathering of the Fellowship, or the creation of the Fellowship. And immediately I started with this top-down photo, and this is one of my favorite photos from it all, because it has that beautiful autumn tree and just like all of them looking towards this ring, and, you know, the pattern of the, you know, Lego tiles just looks so cool. And I made sure to get, you know, all the figures placed in the right seats and all that, again making sure to continue with that consistent theme of like story details. Now, what I think I went wrong with was I tried to already make an orange hue for this scene. It's quite, well, it's not orange, it's more of a yellow in the scene. But what I try to do is capture the yellow hue in camera, when I think it might have been a bit better to go for a neutral color and then edit it through Lightroom later, because I found it quite difficult to kind of tone back the colors to the original scene because of the white balance, of course. And this is where the macro lens really shines, because this is, you know, I've only got so much space in this scene, and being able to get really close to the figures was crucial, and especially because this is a scene where you know, have conversations basically with these characters. And one of my favorite ones was, I think, you know, the first time I watched The Fellowship, one of the most iconic scenes I have remembered was Gimli, you know, throwing his axe onto the ring and it breaking. And I really wanted to highlight that here. And I got a few shots of it, and then, you know, a nice macro shot of his axe as well. For this shot, I couldn't use regular Lego pieces because they'd simply look too big in comparison with the ring. And I thought I could use some little stones, but it was nighttime at this point, so I, you know, couldn't really find any small stones. But then I thought maybe let's try some pepper. So I grounded up some pepper and I put it around the ring, and I think it worked out perfectly. Like, I don't think anyone would believe that this is pepper, but I think it works extremely well. And of course, using that autumn tree to frame this scene again, this is another shot that I really love. It's just like, you know, the small accents of the autumn tree and, you know, Gimli falling back from the power of the ring and everyone reacting to it. Yeah, these were some of my favorite photos. And then of course, the fellowship all together, and you know, I really wanted to highlight this, you know, details of Rivendell in the back. And this scene was quite difficult to do because it was a balancing game and also using a few tiles to elevate certain figures like Gandalf, Legolas, and I think I used it for Gimli as well, because their eyes were going to be just hitting their hair pieces where you couldn't see them, and I wanted to make sure that every character was being seen in this. Again, it was tricky to balance, but we got there. So overall, this wasn't a very complicated shoot, but it was a lot of fun. I think I captured some really cool scenes and experimented with some new framing ideas, which was a lot of fun. And I also made a few comic strips of, you know, some of the scenes up over on Instagram, so make sure to go and check that out. And it just goes to show you the kind of photos you can get while being inside. It was a really rainy day, so I couldn't really go outside and do much. And also, you know, I needed kind of a dark environment to highlight these lights. And yeah, so it was a really enjoyable shoot. I'm probably gonna do the same sort of video when it comes to this big guy, like shooting a lot of interior shots for the moment, because I have a very big plan with that set, but there's a whole bunch of things that need to get organized in order for it to work. I'm gonna be doing kind of something similar to this. So if you're catching on, you'll understand what I mean. If you want to pick up some lights for your own Lego sets, I'll leave Bricksmax linked in the description below. Make sure to check out my Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Hopefully this guy will be built by then. So yeah, goodbye.